Now, joining me to discuss this further is Adewale Oyeride, the Director General of Nigeria's Employers Consultative Association, NECA. Thank you for joining us. Now, can you tell me your take on this new expatriate employment levy policy recently launched by President Bola Tinubu?
Thank you for having us. I think for us, it's a straight issue. While government has the right to come up with policies and programs to drive its objectives, it's also very important that those policies doesn't stifle or create contradictions for operators in that same economy and critical operators like the organized private sector. And that was part of the reasons why we made our concern known to relevant authorities to say this policy, beyond the pros behind it, beyond the figures as per how much the government might make from it, either the government or individuals might make from it, the whole policy itself raises a very salient and very important issue. No, starting from the issue of when part of the things was supposed to do was to reduce wage gap. You wonder how exactly that is going to reduce wage gap. How exactly we are paying $15,000 to government coffers, or 10,000 to government. How exactly is it going to reduce wage gaps? Provide jobs for Nigerians, the same massive Nigerians that are currently leaving the country in droves. Our experts, about the level and quantum of Nigerian experts that have left this country in the last 2 years is quite alarming. So why not let's deal with the reasons why they are going out, rather than stifle those organizations that are basically struggling to keep the economy afloat. So we've raised issues concerning its legality. We've raised issues concerning the appropriateness. We've raised issues concerning the contradictions within the context of that policy itself. And beyond raising those issues, we've also come up with recommendations to government for government to consider. This policy is anti-investment, is anti-growth, and is also anti-job creation. In fact, it will do contrary to what it is purported to do.
All right, Mr. Oyeride, what potential challenges do you foresee in implementing this particular policy?
So the first issue is the legality of it. The first issue about the legality. That Section 59 of the Constitution explicitly states that for any levies, fees, taxes that must be collected in the country must be backed by law, by legislation. We are not convinced that this levy has any legislative backing. That is one. There are other current law, the Immigration Act, says explicitly what a company should do before bringing in an expatriate. And part of those conditions are that the company must advertise that position and be sure that no Nigerian is qualified for it or no Nigerian applied for it before the company can go ahead and confirm to the Comptroller General that this is the case before the expatriate will come. The Local Content Act in the oil and gas industry also specifies the parameters and the process for which an expatriate can come. And Nigerians that must be prepared to work with the expatriate so that within a short while, skills can be transferred. So why not let's strengthen those regulatory frameworks? Why let's strengthen them so that we make it more operational, we make it more effective. If the people that are running it are the problems, then let government change the people. We cannot say that there are no credible Nigerians if government feels that those operating the process currently are not qualified enough. There's no reason why we cannot get qualified Nigerians to address those. We also raised the issue of appropriateness, which is very fundamental. It will surprise you that in the last 2 weeks, 2 or 3 big brands, big organizations in this country, they've declared massive losses induced by the shocks in the environment, induced by the shock of forex, induced by the challenges they face operating in this environment. And in the last 1-2 years, even before this administration came in, Businesses have been leaving this country in droves. So we need foreign direct investment. So you cannot go out in one breath. The president is in Qatar, or probably is back now, His Excellency. And we cannot go out seeking for foreign direct investment, and at the same time, you are creating bottlenecks. You are creating bottlenecks for those same investors to come into this country. For us, we think it's contradictory, we think it's confusing, and we think this policy will do more harm than good to this economy. And lastly, for me, is the contradictions, the massive contradictions. One of the characteristics of the last administration was when one policy will negate the effect of another policy, one policy will neutralize the effect of another policy. And we see this happening. Now, the policy said companies will pay $15,000. It is not 15,000 naira. It is $15,000 and $10,000. While the Presidential Fiscal Monetary Committee, headed by Taiwo Idile, is doing has worked for a year, and we are also part of that committee. The OPS is part of that committee to streamline taxes and levies so that the parameter or the ease of doing business in this country will be enhanced. In another breath, we are coming up with companies to pay $15,000, to pay $10,000 for bringing expatriates to this country. The same talent, the same talent that we as Nigerians, we cannot hold, because as I mentioned earlier, in the last 2 years, you can also imagine the quantum of the experts, the talent that we have in this country, that have moved to Europe, that have moved to America, because the environment wasn't conducive for them to operate.
Yes.
Now, when ours are going
sorry
out,
to cut
we're
you
now
short,
creating
Dr.
bottlenecks for
Oyeride. I'm so sorry to cut you short, but due to time, we appreciate you speaking with us.